And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from a traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Known for his fusion of blues, rock, and swing, Regina's Colin James just released his 20th studio album, Open Road. On today's Open Connection, 8-time Juno Award winner, Colin James.
Whether it's the Little Big Band or whether it's Bad Habits in 1995 or National Steel in 1998 or, ongoing. And the last three records in particular have been a little more straight. And it's been an interesting thing for us because, all my life, I didn't try not to fit into the blues category. It's just that I had some early hits. And when you have hits, people take you out of the blues category and you're a pop artist, And it seems like I've, kind of spent the better part of my career not trying to prove that I meant when I said I love the blues. But it's ironic at this time of my life. I'm 58 years old now, and I'm kind of getting rediscovered in America. And for people down there, a lot of people were only familiar with my early 90s work, and I just kind of disappeared for years, apart from the Little Big Band, which raised some eyebrows, So it's been interesting for me and really gratifying to finally start playing places like Los Angeles and San Diego and Austin and Nashville at this time of my life, and kind of fit into this blues category that I never really did before. Jeff Healey would fit into that category before I would in the past. So that's been kind of nice, and I'm up for my first American award nomination in the blues rock category coming up in May in Memphis. So that's kind of fun. It became pretty self-evident to me that school was not going to be a going thing for me. And it really kind of hit the wall when I was 16, and I went, you know what, I'm halfway through grade 10. I should just split. I'm not doing any good. I'm taking art, music, and English. That's it. So my afternoons were all spares. So I moved to Winnipeg, and thankfully moved into a space where people kind of let me play. I played on street corners for change, in front of liquor board stores, small little parks, coffee afternoons on Saturdays in weird venues. And I did about a year and a half there. And Big Dave McLean and guys like that would allow me to sit in on stage when I was 15, 16. And it'd be in a liquor serving hotel. So they'd take me downstairs from upstairs and let me sit in for 2 songs and then straight back up. But that stuff made a huge difference to me. And at 16, I got a job at the Winnipeg Folk Festival under a band I had formed called the Hoodoo Man. And that was my first, and then later on that year, I opened up for John Lee Hooker and for George Thorogood. So that was a great year for me, 16. John Lee was kind of more of a stylist than a writer he wrote some great songs, but I think John Lee was more about a vibe, he had a guttural, beautiful voice. So when you saw him live, it was like really quite something. He was amazing looking, and he had that ES-335 he would play, and I remember him saying nice things about, I was 16 and I was just a kid, but I remember walking backstage and seeing John Lee Hooker there, and that was something else. But yeah, he was like no one sang like John Lee, You never knew, his band never knew what chord he was going to next. I mean, he didn't half the time, he just kind of felt it, and sometimes it'd be on an off bar and the whole band would get blamed for it, but I played mandolin, and I played a lot of fiddle tunes and Irish music and all kinds of fiddle music. And for a while, I didn't pick up the guitar. I think from 13 to 16, it was just all mandolin. And then I realized that I saw James Cotton at a big festival, and I just thought, man, that's that speaks to me, you know. And then spent the rest of my time. I moved to Montreal, did a couple years in Montreal, and met some people out there too. But it was tough living in Montreal for me. I was on just on the streets playing and subways, and really, ultimately, I always wanted to be in Vancouver. That was my goal. So that happened.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. The philosopher Aristotle explains it perfectly. In his quest to discover the true meaning of life, he suggested there were two constants in life. First, the universe is constantly changing and evolving. What is today is never the same tomorrow. Second, he referred to enalaktki, which means that which turns potential into reality. Let us return to the conversation as Colin shares how fate played a role in his career.
I had been in a band in Vancouver. My leader of the band said, "Colin, I'm so sorry, but you're a little green, a player still, and I have some record company people coming to see me. I'm going to fly in a guy who's a little more experienced than you." And, I was really hurt my feelings. And I thought, all right, well, I got a week off. I guess I'll go home to Saskatchewan and see if I could borrow a couple $100 off my mom, and just, get back home for a little bit, take a breath. Cause I'd been living out here on my own for a couple of years, scraping by. And, the same promoter who got me to open up at George Thorogood and John Lee Hooker, phones my mom just by chance. He had no idea I was even close to town. And said, "Hey, is Colin around?" And she said, "He just got back to town, actually." And he said, "Could you have him phone me?" So I phoned him, and he said, "Hey, Steve, you heard of Steve Ray Vaughan?" I said, "Oh, yeah." He says he's fired his opening act in Edmonton last night, and he's playing Saskatoon tomorrow, and they're desperate for an opening act. So I phoned to people I knew, and everyone said they couldn't do it, and everyone was moved on or wasn't even living here anymore or whatever it was. And I phoned the Saskatoon Jazz Society. I phoned a friend of mine. He says, "Phone the Saskatoon Jazz Society. They'll know what to do." I found a way older drummer and bass player. And they showed up in a pickup truck at 5:00 in the afternoon at the Centennial Auditorium in Saskatoon, which is a 2,200 seater. They thought we were playing a wedding downstairs or something. I said, no, we're upstairs and we're on in an hour and a half. So let's go rehearse. And they made a little room for us. And then Stevie Ray Vaughan came busting in the room within about 5 minutes with his hat and his kimono, and and says, "Is it true what I heard?" And I said, I'm not sure. He says, "Did you guys all just meet?" I said, "Yep." I said, "We're just trying to go through some shuffles to see if we can't cobble together 25 minutes, And he thought that was awesome. He thought it was hilarious. And that night we started talking after I got off stage. I broke 2 strings that night. I had no backup guitar in Stevie's guitar tech. When I was totally strung for a guitar, I hid behind a PA stack and I looked over at Stevie's guitar tech, Rene Martinez, and he had Stevie's guitar in his hand and gave me Stevie's guitar and let me finish the night on Stevie's guitar, And then we became fast friends, and we did the next night, and then about a year went by, and then I did the same thing in Edmonton. Stevie requested me for shows in Edmonton and Calgary about a year later, and then things started moving.
I got a few bad habits, babe.
I ended up with 6 producers on that record, which made for a very confusing and expensive experience, right? So the first guy that worked with me on that record was a super legendary guy out of Miami named Tom Dowd. And Tom was a legend, had recorded Bobby Darin, John Coltrane, Eric Clapton, Iron Butterfly, everybody, basically. And he didn't want me to play any blues. So me and him went to loggerheads right off the bat and ended up spending way too much money to get one song. I think we spent 200,000 American to get one song. That was a jazz song. That was an incidental song on the record. It was a jazz instrumental. And then we had to fly to LA and record with the whole record with a guy named Danny Korchmar. But Bob Rock had already done 2 of the singles. And then Neil Dorfman from Dire Straits fame I ended up working at Electric Ladyland in New York at the Jimi Hendrix studio on a song. It was just a very confusing record. And my second record with Just Came Back and Keep On Loving Me, Baby, I finally got to work with one producer who wanted me to play blues, who was artist friendly, who allowed me to do what I wanted. Not what I wanted, because he was a smart guy and a guy who had produced a lot of ZZ Top songs. And he was out of Memphis. Joe, he died maybe 4 years ago or 5 years ago now. And I was staying in a hotel with one of my friends, one of my childhood friends, because he had come down to work with us. And, you know, we got kind of influenced by the whole Miami southern mangrove swamps. And we wrote this song. And Tom Dad wanted me to sing it like Tony Joe White. He wanted me to sing it like in a whisper, like way down south. He wanted me to sing a storytell. And I went, I don't think so. I think I got to shout it, you know? And so we had to record it all over again in LA. And yeah, but it was, you know, to this day, we still play it here to there. Not always, but most of the time.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. At times, life can feel like it goes on and on forever. At others, life feels like it passes by in a blink of an eye. Whether the days or the years seem to drag on or race past, there is always markers along the way. Let us return the conversation as Colin reflects how his discography marks important times in his life.
It's a family business in the way that everyone's affected by it. My son, my daughter, my wife, my dogs, you know. And over the years, you remember records by, you know, how old your son was, how old your daughter was, when did that happen, how did this go? Because it takes a good year and a half to 2 years to come to completion on a record, from the baby idea to the filling in the blanks, to the mix, to the over listening till you can't stand it anymore, you never want to hear it again, to kind of an excitement when it finally gets birthed to the world, and then you hate it again. You know, it's just like a roller coaster of emotion, and then you don't listen to it again, maybe forever after that, you know, maybe, but you play it live and you get to come to, but you know, I love making records. I always can't wait for the next one. I'm thinking about that right now, and I can't wait to start digging in. I was living in low-income assisted living apartment building in Gastown, and it was a funny little place with like constantly, you look downstairs, old dudes were coming in like drunk and smoking, and you're looking downstairs going, oh no, are we gonna survive the night? And I walked into a confectionery near my house, and Why July was on in the background. That was maybe the first time I'd ever heard my song on the radio. And I went, wait a second, that's my song. Wow. You know, it was like a trip, you know, and Why July really, when that thing came out, it got played a lot. So it was like, because we weren't even signed to a label. I mean, those are the days when we took the record into the radio station and said, would you play it? You know, that, you know, now it's sent by digital, you know, it's, you know, forget about it, you know. We got a very small film crew, a Steadicam and a director, basically. A Steadicam director, you know, those things are heavy, so they need one guy just to hold the Steadicam once in a while, because they're so heavy on the body, right? But anyway, we were just out in an area that looked like it could have been the prairies, or it could have been anywhere. Beautiful train track, and it was a farmer's area. They actually stopped us filming at one point. We had to talk to the lady who owned the land and just said, "Hey, we're just gonna stay on this road. We're not gonna deviate. You know, we'll get out of here as quick as we can." She was really cool, and we found a nice piece of road to drive up and down. I was a little frightened because it was a clutch, you know, and I'm a short person, so it was a little hard to get the clutch on that thing. And I had to do all these 3-point turnarounds on these dirt roads with huge, deep culverts on either side. So I was a little hair raising for me because it was a pristine 65. Was 65? Can't remember now. 68? Anyway, beautiful. The guy who bought it drove it up from Los Angeles, so it's mint shape. And just really enjoyed driving the car. I hadn't driven a clutch in a long time, and just had a great time. But on the video, at the very end of the video, I'm doing a take of the solo, and no one saw the train coming. It was an absolute shock that the train actually came while we were shooting. So everyone went, "Oh my God, what's that sound?" And you could hear it coming, and it just started whizzing by me, and all that was live, just because we were all just going, "Oh." And it was cool. It was just really, really a nice day. I really enjoyed that. And I was working with one of my best friend's son on the video, so it was like super comfortable. So it was cool.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
According to Theory of Needs by David McSellian, there are 3 main drivers for motivation: a need for achievement, a need for affiliation, and a need for power. In this final segment of Open Connection, Colin shares what motivates him.
If it's something that you just have to do, well, then half the battle is just accepting that and moving on. There's really no method, and it's happenstance, it's luck, it's drive, it's desire, it's really feeling like you always were meant to do this for a living. And it's a great life if you have nothing else to lose, because when I quit school and everything, there was no guarantee, and there was nothing saying that it would go like it did, and there's no method to that. So that's all. Do it because you have to. And but I am, we just came up the coast from Los Angeles, and I just had a riot. It's not always great. We're staying at some, pretty cheesy motels once in a while. And at this time, like, it's just, it's kind of fantastic for me because I've been playing Canada all my life. I've just about played every city and town in the country, just about. And to start kind of opening up again this year, we've already played maybe 30, 32, 34 American cities. And it's just like, it's kind of like being a kid again, starting all over again, start having to kind of prove yourself from the ground up again. And although it's scary, it's healthy. And it's, we're heading up from Tampa Bay up to Buffalo in the spring. And we're going to be in Memphis in May. And the rest of the time, I got to start working on a new record and keep it moving. We just played a couple places that were like real roadhouses. Like we just played Portland, Oregon, and then just recently we did all 2,000 seaters. It's just different how at the end of the day, they all inform each other as far as running a show and trying to entertain an audience. And I think in the rock setting, it's a little easier to forego talking and communicating. You can kind of get off on a nice light show. Few words spent, and which is nothing wrong with that. When you're in a more intimate setting, there's a bit more inclination to speak and maybe set up the background of when a song was written, why it was written, and not too much. Like I don't go on forever or anything, but I think it's more personal setting, and it's a whole different set of skills. And actually, as a guitar player, it's a whole set of skills because we're doing a lot more finger picking. So I could be on the road forever playing with a flat pick, doing more of the rock blues thing. But when I get in those situations, if I haven't been doing this, I pay for it, So there's a bit of a learning curve. The first few days are like, ouch, like that. I just decided to bring Lady yesterday because I had a black Strat. I have a white and a black Strat, which I love, but they're not ones that have been with me for years. And then I have a vintage one, which stays at home now because they're pretty rare now. And I've got a Lady. And Lady is my Lady, as far as a guitar in my history goes, has played with Albert Collins, Carlos Santana, Buddy Guy, Stevie Ray, Luther Allison. I mean, that guitar was with me most of my life, almost anywhere important. Bonnie Raitt. So any picture of me with Steve Miller or anybody I've over the years is me with Lady. So I decided to bring Lady on this trip, so she's coming.
And
I hosted a musical event with Albert Collins, Albert King, Buddy Guy, Otis Rush, Teenie Hodges. Who am I missing? Pop Staples. And it was in Montreal years ago. And during the day, as we were blocking out the show, I would come out and do 2 songs and then introduce this person and then introduce that person. And they signed a guitar for me all together on the same pen that night. So that one just never leaves home. I really hardly ever played it. It's the only maple neck Strat I own, because all mine are rosewood and rosewood necks. But anyway, it's great. And actually, I want to respect that guitar and maybe play it more often, because there's nothing wrong with it. But because those guys all signed it on the same day, I've never messed with it. The bridge is like an 80s bridge, which is super ugly, and I would hike it. So I'm torn. Do I leave it exactly like it was when it was given to me, or do I modify it? So that's my milieu. The other show we do is usually we do an hour and a half straight, or an hour, sometimes more. And on this show, we break it into 2 pieces. It's a little more, 45 minutes, and then people can go out and have a drink or whatever they do, a chat, and take a little bit of a break, come back. We don't take a huge break. It's like 10 minutes. And then we come back out and do another 45. And really, the acoustic show, although we don't have a drummer on the show, I do run a couple little beats in the background. I don't love doing that, but one of them I run is actually the recording off my record. So it's actually Bob Dylan's drummer, but I lifted off my own record. So, other than that, we try to keep a nice mix of like songs people recognize, like 5 Long Years and, things like that, but also mix it with more more a few more ballads, a little more slide guitar playing, a little more. I've got Steve Mariner on harmonica and bass guitar, and we still play electric and acoustic. And the harmonica player that with me, Steve Mariner, is maybe North America's finest harmonica player. Honestly, the guy is a monster. And I don't want to show him up because he might be downstairs. My other guitar player, Chris Cadell, also plays in the band Big Wreck. And he's a fantastic player, and he's been playing off and on with me for 12 years. And he's fantastic. So we try to make a party out of it, I guess is all, and try to keep it varied and keep songs over all the different times.
And is there anything I might have missed that you'd like to add?
Come out, it's a bit different, but I think the difference is cool. I think, well, my wife likes it the best. This show, she's listening to it, but she what about it is it's a bit more musical, maybe. There's a bit more room for dynamics. Boom, that's what it is.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.